They say April is a month of renewal, of blooming flowers and warmer skies, but hidden beneath its beauty lies something darker. A time when forgotten rituals resurface, when whispers echo through empty halls, when mirrors reflect more than just your face. These aren't just stories. These are warnings, real experiences shared by real people. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and remember, if something calls your name tonight, don't answer. My room, on the 3rd floor of Pension La Rambla, overlooked the square of an abandoned 17th century church. The owners warned me, don't open the window at night in April, especially when the bells ring. Of course, I didn't believe their superstitions. But on April 12th, while searching for Wi-Fi, I found a handwritten note tucked under my bed in a jagged script. The true April game, 1. At the 3rd bell toll past midnight. 2. Blindfold yourself with a black scarf. 3. Count down from 10 to 1. In Spanish. 4. Remove the blindfold. You'll hear the footsteps of those who whispered this game 300 years ago. I laughed. What nonsense. But curiosity got the better of me. The next night, at the 1st bell toll, I tied the blindfold and began counting. 10, 9. The air grew colder with each number. At 3, I heard metallic scraping, like chains dragging across stone. I tore off the blindfold. The room was filled with blue mist, and perched on the windowsill, a skeletal hand clutching a rusted bell. My heart leaped to my throat. I tried slamming the window shut, but the hand slammed the bell with unnatural force, a deafening chime. Then they appeared. Faceless shadows oozed from the church walls, swaying like headless dancers. I swear, one whispered my name in archaic Spanish. Jason, you've entered our game. Now we play every April. I dove into bed and squeezed my eyes shut. By dawn, everything vanished, except the rusted bell on my desk. The owners later told me the church was a prison for accused witches in 1635, where victims were forced to play with their executioners every April before burning. Now, every April 12th, I wake to find the black scarf tied around my wrist and the bell ringing on its own. The voices grow louder each year. Last night, I opened my eyes to see the shadows seated on my chairs, waiting. One lifted a bony finger and pointed at the calendar. Tomorrow, April 12th. Note: the church's records mention 13 prisoners who vanished into the bells after a game. Their names? All begin with J. In a narrow alley behind the Frauenkirche Cathedral, there's an antique shop called April in the Past. I went in to find a gift for my friend, but I left with something else. On a dusty shelf, I found a black wooden music box, engraved with the words, "Whoever plays me on April 18th will hear the unheard." Inside, it was a red glass teardrop. The shopkeeper smiled unsettlingly and said, "This teardrop is the last thing April's bride ever wept." I paid €18, a deliberate number, and took it. On April 18th, I decided to try it. I placed it on the windowsill at midnight. I turned the key, and the music began. It wasn't an ordinary tune, but the sound of ragged breaths twisting into a mournful whisper. Then suddenly, the glass teardrop burst into red flames. A melody erupted, like a possessed children's song. April laughs, April cries, who steals my tune, steals my soul. The window flung open violently. An icy wind rushed in, carrying the scent of grave soil. In the distance, I saw a pale girl floating over rooftops, drawn to the music. I tried to stop the box, but the key vanished. The red teardrop shattered, and the flames turned into black hands crawling out of the box. I threw it out the window. By morning, the box was back on my table, unharmed. The teardrop had returned. Since that day, every April, the music plays itself at night. And the pale girl stands at the corner of my street, counting the steps to my window. Last year, she was 18 meters away. This year, 18 steps. Yesterday, I found the key on my pillow, smeared with red clay. And I realized, next year, on April 18th, she'll reach me. Note, the shop, April in the past, suddenly closed. Police found 18 identical music boxes inside, each containing a glass teardrop filled with blood. They say some games only work in April, specifically between April 1st and 7th, during what's called the thinning week. I'd never heard of it until my roommate Tyler brought it up one drunken night. It sounded like some Reddit creepypasta, but he swore his cousin tried it and disappeared for 3 days, came back different. The game's called the April Mirror Game. The rules are simple, but twisted. On any night between April 1st and 7th, at exactly 3:03 a.m., you're supposed to sit in front of a mirror with a black candle lit. You say your full name backward 3 times, then blow out the candle. Easy, right? What's supposed to happen is your reflection keeps staring after you've looked away. And if it does, if you see it blink after you've moved, you're not supposed to move or speak, just stare. No matter what. Obviously, I had to try it. I was bored. I was drunk. And deep down, I didn't believe any of it. I followed the rules, lit the candle, sat in front of the mirror in our apartment bathroom, said my name backward, Rednaxla Devad, 3 times, blew out the candle. Darkness. I leaned closer, squinting at my reflection. Nothing. Then I smiled to myself and stood up. But in the mirror, I swear to God, I was still sitting. Frozen. Staring straight at me. And then it blinked. I froze. My reflection slowly tilted its head, like it was studying me. Then it smiled. But it wasn't my smile. It was too wide. Too knowing. And that's when it mouthed something. I couldn't hear it. No sound came out. But I could read the lips. You shouldn't have looked away. Then the mirror cracked, just a thin line, right across the face. My reflection shattered with a soundless scream. I remember blacking out. When I woke up, I was lying in the bathtub. It was 4:11 a.m. The mirror was perfectly intact. No crack, no sign I'd even been there. Except, when I looked into the mirror again, my reflection was normal, but behind me, just for a second, I saw myself, still sitting, still staring, watching me from the dark. This happened 2 years ago, during a spring break trip to my cousin's farmhouse in rural Indiana. It was early April. April 3rd, I think. I was bored out of my mind. No signal, no Wi-Fi, and nothing but endless cornfields. One afternoon, while exploring the edge of the woods near the backfield, I found something strange. $1. Not like a Barbie or anything plastic. This was old, ragged, stuffed with something that smelled like dry grass. It had button eyes and its mouth was sewn shut with thick black thread. But the creepiest part? There was a small paper tag tied to its wrist. It read, April's child. Do not speak to her. Do not carry her. Do not play after sundown. I thought it was a joke. Maybe some local kid's weird art project. But when I brought it back to the farmhouse, my aunt lost it. She slapped the doll out of my hand and screamed at me to take it back immediately. I tried to laugh it off, but she wasn't having it. She's not yours. She chooses someone every spring, always in April. That thing isn't a toy, it's a ritual. I didn't believe her, but I didn't want to deal with her meltdown either. So, I went back to the field and tossed the doll into the tall grass. That night, I woke up at exactly 2:22 a.m. Something was scratching at the window. I thought it was a branch. But when I looked outside, I saw her, the doll, standing, on its own. Its button eyes were glowing faintly, and it was tapping on the glass with one tiny hand. I couldn't scream, I couldn't move, I just watched as it slowly tilted its head and raised the other hand, pointing at me. When I blinked, it was gone. The next morning, I went back to the field. The doll was gone. But in the exact spot I left it, the grass was dead, burned, almost, and stitched into the dirt with thick black thread were 4 words. You played after sundown. I left the farmhouse that same day. I haven't seen the doll since, but every April, around the 3rd or 4th, I hear tapping. Always at 2:22. Always at my window. There was this rumor going around my high school last year. A creepy online challenge that supposedly only worked on April 11th. They called it the April 11th Challenge. It started in whispers. Don't try it alone. People vanish. It's not a game. Of course, that just made it more popular. The rules were simple but chilling. Be alone in your house at exactly 11:11 p.m. Sit in front of a mirror with a flashlight pointed at your face. Say the phrase, "Show me what's waiting." Wait, and do not look away. It sounded fake. I dared myself to try it. April 11th. I told my parents I was doing homework and stayed in, set everything up. At exactly 11:11 p.m., I sat in front of the mirror in my room. Flashlight on, my own pale face staring back. I said the words, "Show me what's waiting." At first, nothing. Then the mirror began to fog from the inside. Not from my breath, from inside the glass, shapes began to form. Faces pressing against the surface, mouths open like they were screaming. But no sound. Suddenly, the flashlight flickered and died. Total darkness. But the mirror was still glowing, and then I saw her, standing behind me in the reflection. A girl, about my age, but drenched, hair matted, skin bluish like she'd been underwater. Her mouth was stretched unnaturally wide, like it had been torn open. She leaned forward in the mirror. "You looked away!" I screamed and turned. No one. But when I turned back to the mirror, I wasn't in it. Not me, it was her, wearing my clothes, smiling. She waved at me. Then the mirror cracked, spiderweb lines splitting down the center. My parents found me passed out on the floor the next morning. The mirror was normal again, but here's the thing. Every photo taken of me since that night, there's always a second version of me in the background, and she's always smiling. Back in college, I took a weekend trip in April with a couple of friends. We booked a cheap motel off the highway in northern Oregon, one of those places that hasn't updated its carpets since the 70s. The guy at the front desk looked half asleep and barely spoke. He handed me a key with a metal tag that read 404. When I mentioned that room number, he hesitated, said something like, "That room doesn't always stay empty in April." I thought he was trying to be spooky or whatever, so I just laughed it off. But from the moment we walked in, that room felt off. It was cold. Not just chilly, like walking into a basement freezer. The wallpaper was peeling in weird spots, like someone had scratched at it. One of the lamps kept flickering even though it wasn't plugged in. I'm not kidding. That night, around 3 a.m., I woke up needing to pee. As I walked toward the bathroom, I passed the mirror over the dresser, and I stopped. In the mirror, the reflection of the room looked different. There was someone standing in the corner. A woman, hair covering her face, barefoot, wearing a long hospital gown soaked near the hem. I turned around, nothing. But in the mirror, she was still there, staring at me. Suddenly, the light flickered violently and I swear the air felt thick, like I was underwater. Then the woman lifted her head and I saw her face, or what was left of it. Half of it was stitched. The other half was burned. She opened her mouth and I heard it, like a whisper in the back of my skull. "You're in my room. You said my name." I hadn't, at least, I don't think I had. I blacked out. My friends found me curled up in the bathtub the next morning, whispering the words, "I see you, I see you, I see you," over and over again. They got me out of there, took me home. A few days later, one of them texted me something strange. He found a photo online from a fire that happened in that motel back in 1982. There was a woman listed as missing. She'd been staying in room 404. Her name? April. I haven't booked a motel in April since. When I was a kid, my grandmother used to warn me never to say the chant during the first week of April. It was one of those old family superstitions, one I never really understood. She called it the April chant, and she said it opened a door that can't be shut if you say it wrong. I never knew the words. She made it sound like it was in some old language, until last April when I was helping clean out her attic after she passed. I found an envelope taped under a loose floorboard. Inside, there was a yellowed slip of paper, handwritten in my grandmother's shaky cursive. "Only speak this aloud if you wish to see them. Only in April, only once." And then, the chant, "Valek na durum, shaleth a voren, kaleth a vornai." I said it, not because I believed it, but because it felt like a secret I wasn't supposed to know. And maybe a part of me was curious. Nothing happened at first, but that night I started hearing whispers in my apartment. Faint at first, like background noise. Then louder and clearer. They kept saying my name every single night. By the fourth day, the whispers stopped whispering. They started chanting back. "Valek na durum, shaleth a voren, kaleth a vornai," over and over, always at 4:04 a.m. The lights would flicker. My electronics would turn on and off by themselves. I started seeing shadows, just standing there, watching from doorways, from the end of the hall, from behind the shower curtain. But here's the thing, they never moved. Not unless I looked away, and then, one morning, I woke up with the chant carved into my bedroom wall. Not written, carved. I tried everything, burning the paper, praying, sleeping at a friend's house, but the shadows followed. They never speak anymore, they don't have to. I broke the rule. I said it in April, and now they're waiting for me to say it again. I found the ritual online. Some obscure blog buried deep in a rabbit hole of urban legends. It was titled, "The Red Thread Ritual, only works from April 5th to April 9th. I thought it was just another made-up challenge, but it had rules, specific, chilling rules. Take a piece of red thread exactly 13 inches long. Tie one end around your left pinky. Whisper the name of someone you hate. At midnight, leave the thread outside your bedroom door. Do not open the door until sunrise. It promised revenge. They'll suffer what you wish upon them," the post claimed. "But something will be taken in return." I should have closed the tab. I should have ignored it. But I didn't. There was this girl, Samantha, who had made my life miserable all semester. Constant bullying, rumors, threats. I felt powerless. So, I tried it. April 6th, 11:59 p.m., I tied the thread, whispered her name, laid it outside my dorm door. Then I waited. Nothing happened, at first. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, dragging, barefoot. Then they stopped. Right outside my door, and then scratching, not knocking, scratching. Fingernails across wood. Slow, deliberate. I didn't move, didn't breathe. At exactly 6:03 a.m., it stopped. I opened the door, and the red thread was gone. That same day, I found out Samantha had fallen down a flight of stairs at a party. Broke her leg, shattered her jaw. She swore someone pushed her, but no one was there. I should have felt something. Satisfaction, maybe. But that night, I looked in the mirror, and my reflection was wrong. It was me, but older, pale, eyes sunken, and around my neck, a red thread, tightening. Now, every April since, I wake up one morning with that thread tied somewhere new. My finger, my wrist, my ankle. Last year, it was around my throat. It always disappears after a day, but every time, it feels tighter.